episode 282. Bill Gates. Hello and welcome to another episode. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all keeping healthy. Hope you're wearing the masks when you're supposed to, sterilising their hands, social distancing, maybe even staying at home and listening to me. Whee! So, I've been doing, I've been on Twitter quite a lot, really. I'm sort of trying to promote some of these podcasts, but it's sort of, I'm sort of a conundrum in some ways, in the sense of, for me, it's all about the content. And I don't really worry about the marketing or promotion or getting it out there, you know. It's quite interesting. But I just read an article there about podcasting, something along the lines of, before you start to promote your podcast, make sure you've got enough content. I've got too much, just too much content. But anyhow, so yeah, I spent a bit of time on Twitter, and I try and be quite selective who I follow and who I tweet and all the rest of it. And I don't speak to him, Ricky Gervais, and I put a comment, and sometimes he likes it, sometimes he doesn't even know you exist, and it's fine, you know. We probably wouldn't share a pint in a pub, so I don't really care, you know. He's rich, he's a celebrity, that's fine. But but obviously I've been following a lot of people, and some people say some of the most awful things, and I just think if the person was in front of them, they wouldn't say those things. And I noticed something was trending there. I'm always on the lookout for trending stuff. I think it was BTS was once, not the one I'm going to talk about now, but BTS, what's that, Burn the Stage? They're a Korean boy band. I say boy band, I mean, some of them are nearly 40, aren't they, in the band, but they look young anyway. And I was almost going to do a podcast about them just because they were trending, they were blowing up the internet, you know. They'd done I think it was a tweet. They'd done a tweet or something, and I don't know, within 40 minutes they had 20 million or 10 million, I don't know, likes. It was incredible, so they're obviously very popular by a certain generation that is plugged into the internet pretty 100%, you know. But anyhow, as part of the trending, I came across Bill Gates, and I'm sort of a fan of Bill Gates in some ways, and I'll explain that a little bit more, I think, in the sense of Microsoft and Windows. You know, they were groundbreaking in some ways, they were rubbish in lots of ways. I mentioned in a previous podcast, I think it was episode 279, I talk about Unix. So I'm sort of the other side of the fence in some ways. I've done Unix and Linux more than I've done Windows. I have been a Windows guy. I was an MCSE certified back in the day, 20 odd years ago. So I know Windows, I know what it's about, you know. I've read quite a bit about Bill Gates. He's not a bad person. That's the first thing I'd say to you. He's not a bad person at all. And looking back at how he started, he was very, very lucky. He was in a position where he had access to computing power that, very few people had access to. So he was lucky in that sense. And there's a guy called, you might have heard of him, called Malcolm Gladwell. He's wrote a few books now, Tipping Point and a few others, and Outliers and things like that, I think. But he talks about this 10,000 hour rule. So basically, if you do something for 10,000 hours, right, you're going to be an expert in it. You're going to be world class, you know. And when I think of Unix and Linux, well, I've done 10,000 hours, so I am an expert. I am world class in it, you know. Makes perfect sense. Malcolm Gladwell mentions the Beatles, and he goes, they were doing these, I think they were ridiculous shifts. I don't know what they used to be, 12-hour shifts when they were in Germany. They were playing songs and people were having the lunch and stuff, and they were listening to the music, but it wasn't such a big deal. That's a tough crowd, isn't it? But that's where the Beatles honed their skills. They knew what lyrics worked, what music worked, what songs worked, how to perform the songs. So when they came back to the UK, boom, they had it sussed. The 10,000 hour rule. And Bill Gates, he had access to computing power at the time. By luck, by chance, by a little bit of being a bit bolshy, he got in there and he got 10,000 hours. And that's how Microsoft started, really, So it's a wonderful story. It's excellent. It's fantastic. A bit of luck and a bit of gumption, boom, And he is a clever guy, don't get me wrong. So fast forward to the last, let's just talk about since he left Microsoft. I'm not a big fan of some of the things I've heard about him in Microsoft. And bear in mind, I've heard these things third, fourth, fifth hand. You know, he used to say something about, you know, you can work, you know, you can be flexible working at Microsoft. You can work whatever 12 hours a day that you want. Yeah, okay. I don't prescribe to that. So, and apparently he used to memorize the number plates in the car park of his employees, so he knew who was in and who wasn't. I don't like that either. But let's not talk about it. Let's talk about post Microsoft. So he's a billionaire. He's a lot of money, you know, and you know what? You don't have to do anything with it. You know, if you retire, you leave whatever Microsoft, you can just go. That's it now. I'm just gonna get on my yacht, travel the world, chill out, boom, you know. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some very good tax reasons why you might want to, shall we say, offload a bit of cash, you know. I mean, inheritance tax, I'm not sure the laws in the US, but certainly in Ireland and the UK, you know, you lose a lot of money if you're, you know, your children or their children, whatever, they inherit money from you. It's taxed, inheritance tax. So, and when you're talking billions, it's a lot of money. So in some ways, it makes perfect sense to give it away. Now, the first thing I'd say, and I think that upsets a lot of people about Bill Gates, is he has a fund. Him and Melinda Gates have a fund, and they're big into vaccinations, you know. And from my personal experience, I know people who are very much anti-vaccinations, you know. And I don't mean to upset anybody, but if you're against vaccinations, you're wrong. Yeah, you're absolutely wrong. Whatever you think, whatever you know, or whatever you think you know, vaccinations are the way forward. There are millions and millions and millions of people alive today because of vaccinations, so I'm not going to accept any argument from any anti-vaxxers out there. So that's the first thing. That might sound a little harsh. Now, you know what? Don't get me wrong. You can be sensitive to anything, you know, and there are people who might have got ill, might have even died from a vaccination. I get that as well. I understand that, you know, and I'm not saying that hasn't happened. There's talk about autism in, you know, certain vaccinations, you know, and people have an agenda, and if they get enough people to believe them, it's a disaster, you know. So I believe in science and evidence. So I mean, you know, if someone stands up and makes a stupid claim, unless they've got some really good evidence to back it up, I'm not going to believe it, you know. So the reality is, vaccination's good. All my kids have been vaccinated, and I'm glad to say that you know, they're all doing great, you know. And I think in 99.999% of all cases, that's the situation. Now, Bill Gates had it very hard because he was vaccinating in certain countries in Africa. And, you know, I don't really want to go into any detail on the political situation in parts of Africa or even the religious situation. But some religions, some politics believe that, you know, it wasn't a vaccination, they were trying to poison people. And people got murdered, you know, people trying to save lives were actually killed. And I think that's totally unacceptable. It's horrible to hear that, you know. So as much as I would say I'm not Bill Gates' biggest fan on the planet, the work he has been doing with his foundation, I think, is amazing. It's above and beyond anything, you know. So when I sort of stumbled across Bill Gates trending on Twitter and read some of the utter bile that was on there, I mean, David Icke now, I have actually said I think I've said maybe I've been too nice about David Icke at times, but some of the things he's been tweeting about Bill Gates, at this real critical moment in human history, in global history, when we're in one of the worst pandemics that, you know, we've seen in decades, and they're now saying about, you know, how he's trying to make money out of stuff, how he caused the pandemic, how he's going to make a lot of money. I mean, wow, you know. And the anti-vaxxers are all there lining up, you know, telling us that it's all a conspiracy and you're going to get, you know, autism if you take the vaccine and that sort of stuff. That's all rubbish. So I felt I had to do a little episode about all this. And I think The one thing I'd say, and something that Ricky Gervais said about religion and the holy books and things like that is, you know, you believe what you want, that's fine, you know, and we've got science as well, and science is there. But you destroy all the science books, you destroy all the holy books, and 1,000 years from now, those science books will be rewritten exactly the same because they're based on evidence that's repeatable time and time again. They're not fancy little, stories and things that, may have a moral or immoral meaning, So yeah, I was very sad now to see the amount of abuse, and some people do seem to get a lot of abuse, and a lot of the people seem to give as much as they get, and some people seem to be the source of it. I mean, I've never really been on Twitter much over the years. I have been joined for the last 11, 12 years, but I haven't used it to any extent. And just to see some of the rubbish people say, it really is a big concern, that they can say these things to people. And God knows, I don't know how. I'm hopeful Bill Gates doesn't have to read all the stuff. But, when you see high-profile people, and, fair play to them, they have a go back as well. But I find it very upsetting. And there's a moment where if you read through every single one of these messages, you really start to lose hope about mankind, womankind. You start to lose hope about people when you read some of the rubbish, So, for the record, Bill Gates hasn't created COVID. That's the first thing. It's part of the coronavirus family. He didn't create it. The Chinese didn't create it either. His vaccine, his plans for a vaccine. Listen, we don't have a vaccine, do we? The Russians think they have one. It's fair play to them. But there isn't one at the moment, and there's probably not going to be one for a couple of years. But that's the way forward. Vaccination's the way forward. So, it's just, I just find it so hard, to believe that people can say the things they say and believe the things that they believe. Where the hell did they get these ideas from? And it has to be the fact that there's influencers, mostly on the internet, who are pushing out these theories that are nonsense. And there's enough people believe them. Maybe people don't want to believe authority, don't want to believe Bill Gates because he's a billionaire, he's more money than me, Maybe that's what it is, but it's very sad to read some of the comments. And I do hope he doesn't read them himself, because I know what, I'm going to read a lot less of these comments, But, so Bill Gates, he is doing such great work with his foundation. He's not sponsoring this, by the way. And with the vaccination and some of the other programs that he's funded. And some of the research he's funded as well. For parts of the world where there might not be toilets or clean water. He's put so much time, effort and money into these things. It's incredible. As an employer, as a manager, I probably wouldn't want to work with him. We probably wouldn't go out for a pint either. But, like I said, going back to the 10,000 hour rule, he's had an amazing grounding in this in the tech industry. That's where Microsoft came from. Warts and all, because by no means was Windows and Microsoft, I don't believe, is a great company. But, they're getting there. I'm running Windows 10 at the moment. I'm recording this on Windows 10. I've got a Mac here as well, and another PC as well. But anyway, I just feel that, to see some of the dross out there, wow, you really have to have a thick skin, don't you? And then when you hear about women and men who've, it's affected them, you can really understand. I think Stephen Fry's took a break. I think it's August now. I think back in June he said he was having a little Twitter holiday. And you know what? I really get that now. You really need that, because you know what? It can be such an effort just replying, even just reading some of the absolute dross.